online weather. It's Saturday, the 25th of July, and this is your weather update for the week ahead. And it will also include an ENSO update because it's our last video for the month. But let's start with the weather. Okay, so here we're looking at rainfall accumulation across the week, and you can see we have multiple days which will lead to light scattered showers all across the east as a series of cold fronts move through. They'll be accompanied with some strong wind, which will hit WA, or the south of WA, on Sunday, and that will move into the southeast by Tuesday. Most of the rainfall will be concentrated down in Tassie as well as the wind there. As the cold fronts move through, though, they'll be replaced by a high pressure system, which will really reduce the winds and also see some fog potentially appear later on in the week across the south. All right, we can also see that we've got some light accumulations up in the northeast. This is again multiple days of showers up here. There are also showers down the east coast, but these will arrive Thursday, Friday, so a little bit later in the week. Let's have a look day by day at the breakdown. So we can see this is the cold front system moving through WA mainly on Saturday, but this is the Sunday system, and a little bit of showers down here in Tassie. Moving through now to Tuesday, this is the main accumulation of that low pressure system that's just off the coast here in the South Sea, and then the high pressure system moving in to replace it. By Wednesday, most of the south is covered by this high pressure system, and that lasts through the week into the weekend when we do have this system, but it doesn't hit any land masses. So just to summarize, we've got a cold front Sunday down here in the southwest, Tuesday down here in the southeast, and multiple days of scattered showers up here in the northeast. All right, let's move on to our ENSO update. So we're going to start here. This is the ECMWF, which is the European forecast for July 26th. And what I want to show you first off is actually where we first started. These were our forecasts in May. They went from about 1.5 degrees to just above maybe 3.3 degrees here as an anomaly from the normal, whereas now we are seeing plumes well above, many well above that 3.5, and none of them are down here in the 1. So what that means is that our confidence in the forecast of it being a strong to very strong El Nino is growing. And it's important to note that El Ninos commonly, they onset during this sort of cool season, and they typically peak in the warm seasons, November, January, February, and on average they last for about 12 months, but they can last up to 2 years. So that's the cycle of El Nino. So nothing there is quite surprising except the heights that we're reaching. When we look at it, this is the Bureau of Meteorology's recent history of El Ninos or ENSO activity. This is our current El Nino here, and really what's quite interesting is the rate of increase here. Now, that's not different if we look back to previous El Ninos. They can rise very rapidly and then fall very rapidly as well. But this rise is quite steep, and it's expected to continue to rise. So that's what's really a bit of a concern for us. Let's have a look at that model evaluation of its continue to rise. So we're going to start here. This is the model predictions of ENSO. This is multiple models across the globe. You don't need to know what the models are. What I want to show you is just this spread and where there are similarities. So what we're looking at is sort of in these 2 months, if I can get this cursor off, I'm just going to point up here. So these 2 months, or this little band here, is where it seems to peak as an El Nino, which is SON, so September, October, November, December, January. So anywhere between September and January, we're expected to peak. We are in June now, so we still have multiple months left to go of that El Nino rising. And it will then fall. That happens, okay? That's how El Ninos work. They rise, they fall. If we go down to here, and I think this is what, we've been talking about this at work. I'm a researcher. That's what my day-to-day job is. We've been chatting about this. And I think what's most surprising to us is if we look at the observations here, which is this strong black line, which you can't see if I move my mouse over, but this strong black line is the observations, and all the different colors are different models. What's quite interesting now is as we move ahead, this black line is sitting further up towards the higher models in terms of the sea surface temperature anomaly. So the models that are showing a stronger El Nino is where the observations are tracking, less so than the middle. So again, that's indicating that it could potentially be quite a strong El Nino. We've still got multiple months to see how far it leads up and how long it lasts, but that's just to give you an indication of where it's sitting at the moment. Now, what happens with the El Nino and what are some things that we are kind of expecting, that we're seeing is El Ninos are a strong, dominating global climate mode. And so they have lots of impacts. One of the big ones for Australia is that they, especially the north, is that they weaken trade winds. And we're definitely observing that. That's being seen. You can even see, if we look at the Madden-Julian oscillation here, is that it's actually relatively weak. So the way that we look at this or read this diagram is the closer the Madden-Julian oscillation is, this like model line is to the center circle, the weaker it is. And it is really quite close. Now, we're also in the wet season, so that could be a part of it, but it's one of the reasons why there's quite stable weather, dry weather up there in the north. And we're definitely seeing less cloud cover over the maritime continent, which is up north in Australia, which can lead to the drying of soils. Not a lot of delivery in that sort of dry season, which again is typical. But it's more the lack of cloud cover, I think, which is leading a lot of evaporation up there. So those things are what we're already seeing from El Nino. We're also seeing, which could potentially more be an indicator of the positive southern annular mode, which is here. We're now tending, we've just had a very, very, very positive southern annular mode. We're now tending back down into the negative. There are arguments whether the southern annular mode drives the weather or the weather drives the southern annular mode. It doesn't matter. What this trend, I think, is showing you, though, is that for the southeast, which is where the southern annular mode has the most impact, or really the south, I should say, is that we've had a very long period of those dominating highs. They're stationary, they are stagnant, they're not moving. That's why we've had really strong inversions. We've had quite a poor snow season, quite warm daily temperatures and those cool overnight temperatures. That's all from this, or could be recorded as this positive southern annular mode, these big fat highs. This week, as we've said, we've got a few fronts that are actually moving through the south sort of finally. I think fronts are really what we tend to see as the typical southern Australian weather, and we just haven't had a lot of successful fronts this year. That's what this little dip is here, is that we're getting a few fronts this week. But again, they're quite weak. They're not delivering a lot of rainfall. They're not delivering that much wind either. So that's yeah, quite interesting. And then here it seems the median model is neutral and the spread is relatively even. So I think we're going into, again, not a very strong front season, which is really what drives a lot of rainfall in the southeast. So in saying that, let's have a look at the next month's forecast. Okay, here we are looking at the chance of exceeding median rainfall for August 2026, and you can see across the south it is very unlikely that we will exceed median rainfall. We've got some high probabilities here up in the very north, eastern coast, the north, and this is just an artifact of probably a singular weather system that the models are showing, but there's definitely not a likely chance that it will be a very rainy season in August. Let's have a look at the 3 months, so coming into spring now. So a lot of the models are showing quite a wet WA compared to the median for the time, which again, because there's not a lot of rainfall recorded here, it could just be down to a few weather systems. But across the southwest, the southeast, we are seeing a lot of drying here. This likelihood to receive rainfall at the median wouldn't surprise me if, because a lot of those fronts are tracking quite south, so this, the southern coast of Tassie is maybe hitting it, but it's not reaching or extending to the east coast because of the orography. Okay, so wrapping up here with our climate modes for the next month, we've got El Nino showing that it is agreeing with the strong or the very strong models. It will likely peak at the end of this year. We have a very low likelihood of exceeding the median rainfall in August as well. So it's looking to start to dry out quite a bit as we're not getting a lot of those frontal systems down in the southeast, which could be part of the southern annular mode. It could be a part of the El Nino southern oscillation. There's lots of variables in the atmosphere that drive rainfall. Okay, that's our update for this week. We will see you next time. And don't forget, we have a state by state breakdown available for you if you want further details for your week ahead. See you next time.